Maybe in my specific bubble, I hear the term mindfulness so much more over the years.
You're constantly being pinged by, this notification, this email, this message.
But the manly man, does he talk about meditation? I'm not so sure about it.
Because at the end of the day, you have to, grow and sell the product.
I found this very interesting because just one little wording change can make such a big difference in perception of the user, right?
Welcome to Let's Talk Ads. We're here to push your growth, marketing tips, fun and chats. Tune in, let's rock the show.
Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Ads. My name is Andre. I'm the CEO of Admiral Media, a leading performance marketing agency. And I'm calling in from Zurich today and have an amazing guest dialing in from New York, right, Daniel?
Actually, Pasadena, but I have spent
Pasadena.
12 years in New York. Yeah, we had, well, I wouldn't say we had to move, but, decided to move to California, explore it, see what's out there. And yeah, decided to stay. So 3 years ago, we moved to LA and then picked a spot in Pasadena. So yeah, I've been here for quite some time now.
Super nice. I've traveled the US a little bit, and California was definitely also my favorite, but probably because I have a preference for the type of climate.
I still find myself a New Yorker. I support LA Dodgers, but because they're Brooklyn Dodgers kind of situation. But yes.
Yeah, thanks for coming today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. We wanted to talk about building growth engines when acquisition gets expensive, which happens most of the time to all of us in marketing, I guess. You are now head of growth at Waking Up. What is making up? Waking Up. Can you quickly explain a little bit what that is?
Sure. I think in two sentences, Waking Up is all about mindfulness and meditation. I think we see ourselves as more than just a meditation app. So if you were to become a member, there are really a lot of things that are all tied to mindfulness in general, and that comes from long form talks, Q&A. Obviously, there's theory and practice. So we really dive deep into specific areas, not the 5-minute stress reliever kind of things, but more of, all right, you're taking 10-20 minutes, maybe an hour out of your day to really devote yourself. So in the end of the day, for us, it's all about mindfulness. And we have a saying internally, it's you can't hack mindfulness, so it's more, if you were to find a hack, so-called hack, you're really, in the end of the day, you're sort of cheating on yourself. That's the best way that I can put it. It's, you really have to invest, right? And that's what in some capacity, we find it hard to even acquire new customers, right? Because we live in a world where it's all quick and fast, and it's we want it now, as opposed to, mindfulness is a much more long-term game.
Interesting. I feel at least in Western Europe, when I talk to people, or maybe in my specific bubble, I hear the term mindfulness so much more over the years. So I was expecting that this would be a growing industry, even, right? So interesting to hear that.
I truly believe it is. Yes, just because in the world that we live these days, right? It's even tough to find 5-10 minutes for yourself. You're constantly being pinged by this notification, this email, this message. So yeah, it's definitely harder to come by. So our focus is to kind of ground you and to settle your mind, if you will.
Daniel, you've made a fascinating transition from you've been working with Revolut before, right? Head of growth, United States, correct, right? So when you think of the time that you've spent with advertising Revolut as an app, which is heavily fintech, money management, and sending money from A to B very quick, these kind of things. When you compare that to mindfulness, meditation, calm down kind of advertising, do you see big differences between the two types of products? And not only from the communication perspective, but also from maybe channels, communication, bidding strategies, whatsoever, what comes to your mind?
Absolutely. I think when it comes to fintechs, it's all about utility. I think, well, first and foremost, right, you're talking about people's money, and I think when you take US specifically, two things that really come to mind that people care about is one, their health, right? And second is like their money. Whichever comes first, I can't confirm, but money definitely plays like a big part in everyone's life. So when you're trying to acquire customers, there's, I would say, like two paths. One is first you have to be trustworthy, yes, but this is more about, okay, how can I benefit from it, whether it's speed, whether it's the fees, right? So the value driven approach is a bit different, where in mindfulness this sort of turns, right? Because it's so, well, mental space, I guess, in general, it's like it's so intimate, so private. So where in Revolut, it's all about tangible rewards, like, okay, here's like 12 or $20 or like $50 to get you started, right? Where in mindfulness, it's more about, okay, you have to like build the trust, the credibility, and ultimately that comes down to like the sense of alignment, right? At Revolut, like we scaled by pushing, virality, right? Incentives. Yes, there was utility in it, where we have just a massive network, international network. But at Waking Up, it's more about, just laying out the foundation.
When you joined Revolut, it was already a big company, I guess, like 3 years ago or something, right? When you compare this now to Waking Up being probably still in a startup category, do you see a big difference between infrastructure, team setup? Where do you see the differences here?
I would say at Revolut, a lot of things were built, but they were built for other markets. So the challenge was of, okay, how do we take this infrastructure and actually like make it US, right? So I would, there were, situations where it's like very British driven, like using British language, or, not having the localization, at least like in the first, let's say, like week or two. Then ultimately, like, we had to pause that. But at Waking Up, the company has actually been around for 7 years. I think that the only thing that, up until this point, they were counting on was organic growth, right? I wouldn't say counting on necessarily, because of Sam Harris. Not sure how familiar you are with Sam Harris, but he's a pretty famous neuroscientist, and he was actually the one who created the app, Waking Up. So he took a different approach. We don't have any like ideologies when you enter it. There's no there is obviously the Buddhism approach, right, and how the Eastern world in general, but I think the essence of it is a bit different to other apps. But that's another subject of it. When I came to Waking Up, there it was a bit different, where a lot of it was just word of mouth. But as I saw, that trend kind of shifted, where you'll almost need to bring up the growth function, and the team is small, yes, much smaller. When I joined Revolut, there were like 1,500, but that's most of them were global. The US team itself was, I want to say, like about maybe like 50 to 60 people when I joined, and by the time that I left, I think they're like closing up to like 15,000 globally employees. So yes, they're definitely well, comparing to Waking Up, I think the team is, I want to say, like 27, 28 right now. But it's done differently. I think it's definitely the brand integrity. Yes, we're looking at things through a lens almost. It is slower on in terms of like how we approach things, but that's because we want to make sure that every box is ticked, right? Whether it's brand, whether it's the creative, there's alignment, there's content. Where in at Revolut, again, like comparing the two, that one was more like, all right, we have the machine in place, now let's go grow it, right? So the objectives are sort of different. And I think with Waking Up, what I found is, that brand really like is important, right? So we have like our head of brand, the creative director. When we meet, there's a lot of discussions of, even like, okay, are we using this image over this image, and how does this position us?
Okay, interesting. When you think of how you joined Waking Up after coming from such a big, monstrous machine, advertising machine, let's say, do you remember what you did first, and was it the right choice in the setup, let's say,
Mm.
joining Waking Up? looking
Yeah.
back? Would you do
When
something
I
different?
when I joined, first thing that I looked at is data, because I think growth is a function where, it's a lot about numbers. I don't think a lot of people understand it, but like it's all about the numbers, right? Yes, that's the ugly truth, if you will. Yes, it comes out as like the final output are ads, or like, the emails, right, or the push, or various other channels. But for me, it's all about data. So like data integrity, like, all right, are we able to actually like understand what we're seeing, instead of seeing, 10,000, 20,000 downloads? Like, where are they actually coming from, right? So it's like getting to the truth almost, and then from there you're trying to unpack it further. So for me, first 3 months was definitely data dedication of like outlining the attribution, the tracking, because marketing was not the, I would say, external marketing, right? As like paid marketing itself was not the focus in the previous years. So it's more like uncovering a lot of those things, setting up all the UTMs. So it's really like building out the foundation almost before we push. And that took effort. Obviously, we are a small team, so it's more like prioritizing and kind of understanding what's required in the months to come. So that was one of the key things that took time. But with all the releases, we finally got into a good place where now I can confidently say, oh, like, all right, this dollar contributed to this dollar back,
Mhm.
right? And that's what pushes me forward.
What is your target? I guess it's subscription-based business. What is
It
your
is.
target, guys? Is it day 1 ROAS, day 30 ROAS, or um, how do you optimize your acquisition?
Yeah. I would say target is because we don't have any outside investors. Like, it's a private company where they've grown on its own privately for the past 7 years. Our KPIs could be different to what others have that are more VC funded startups. It's all about being profitable, of course. I think the same was the case at Revolut, where I had to be ROI positive by X months. I think here, because it's a subscription business, but it's less around you. Well, let me backtrack. There is let's say, like a one-time payment, right? We offer 2 subscriptions, either monthly or annual. We see that most of the folks take up the annual plan, which makes it tough in terms of just revenue generating events, right? Where in fintechs it's more it happens daily users. Here it's more, okay, understanding after the person has subscribed, how are they actually using the app layer, and then determining, okay, is there a signal that they might churn in 360 days that they might have left, right? So for us, yes, it's being well ROI positive in the 12 months, just because it's once a year kind of situation. So want to make sure that our CAC, cost of acquisition in general, is, well, essentially lower, right, than what people would pay us annually, and that's all the costs included, not just media costs.
I understand. When you look at the acquisition, is it so much spend that you have a lot of different channels running in parallel, maybe even connected TV whatsoever? Or have you reduced everything and focus on just a few channels?
We have. I would say yes. Definitely. I would say the channels are most focused, and I'm sure we'll get into creatives later. I would break it down into 3 main buckets. There's organic. Oh, sorry, 4. Organic. Then referrals, which we call shares, partnerships, and partnerships can be quite a vast category. That can range from folks that run podcasts to influencers to strictly affiliates. And then there's paid marketing, so like paid ads, right? There's Meta, Google, Apple ads. Then no CTV quite yet, just because the marketing as a function wasn't really like present when I joined, right? That was kind of the initial challenge, is building out that function fully. So we've launched those channels. I would say over the course of the last 4 months, really scaled really nicely, meaning like all the KPIs are met, right? Like we're optimizing. But yeah, So we've really tried to focus and hone in, and we are available to more than just US. So there's also opportunity to expand elsewhere if we so wish. But for us, I think there's so much untapped potential for the US market, and by the numbers that I'm seeing, it's actually quite exciting.
Understand. Okay, thanks for sharing. You at the very beginning you mentioned like they grew with word of mouth, if I'm not mistaken, and now you also mentioned referrals. Is that a big thing for waking up still, and how does it work exactly? Like, do you have a viral function inside the app?
Yeah, referrals are important for sure. I think they are for any business. Even at Revolut, I think it was one of, if not the top channel for us in the US. But there's a lot of halo effect coming from Europe. If you want, we can discuss that later. But at waking up, yes, it's super important. Up until this point, like I said, they didn't really have a marketing function.
Yeah.
So all of it was around organic, and then people mentioning it on, whether like sharing it on well, now Threads as well, but like Instagram, Facebook, right? Of like, hey, I've listened to this content. We think you might find this helpful. So a lot of shares, and the way that it works is we essentially share a 30-day guest pass, no credit card required. Where in other instances, right, you have to go through all these flows of, all right, you got to input your information, you have to put the credit card, and then if you forget to unsubscribe, then it's basically you make the payment, right? In our terms, it's a 30-day guest pass. So think of it as like I don't know, like a gym membership almost, right? Where a friend of yours is sharing the content that might resonate with you, but then ultimately you're not obliged to provide a credit card. So if you do not like the app, you simply do not like the app.
Understand. I find it hard to believe that I would use a mindfulness app and then think of sharing this with a friend or a couple of friends, like even disclosing that I'm a user of such app. Is that something where you see concerns from your user base, and how do you tackle that issue? Like, how you incentivize the user still to talk about it or to share it?
Yeah. And yeah, I would say there's definitely such a thing in meditation, right? Because it's personal. I think at the end of the day, right, meditation is personal. A lot of people
Maybe
are
that's like my sharing that I'm doing meditation stuff, right? So it's a certain category of character that does it very often. But the manly man, does he talk about meditation? I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, and to be honest, like I don't know. I'm not an expert on like why that stigma still exists. Right, a lot of people are like, even if you look at at the news with like social media and everything going on, right? A lot of people are like struggling with stress and anxiety. So for us, I think to go beyond that sort of stigma of like only folks with, I don't know, some sort of like mental problems meditate or like go seek help. That's not the case. It doesn't have, you don't have to be like at that point in time to go out and seek help, right? Where it's like, this is more around mindfulness and how do you live a better life. We all have our goals, our personal goals, and what we do is essentially like help you manage that day to day, right? And for us, like how we position it, and that's why our referral program is called Sharing. It's we're people are meant to share it, more of like a gift, right? As opposed to something that, I give you $20, you give me $20, right? And you'll find that when actually like a couple of updates that we have done recently, we sort of changed the language of how we approach someone sharing out the content, where before it was pretty basic of like, hey, here's the 30-day guest pass, and it made it harder to explain what waking up is. Now it's more around, all right, I found this content helpful, I think you might benefit from it, right? But the challenge still remains is people treat meditation as so personal, which it should be, right? And it's like everybody kind of has their own path and like what they're interested in, like what they're struggling with. But with us, we're trying to almost personalize it and make sure that people that reach out, they can they how should I put it? It's in plain English, of like, all right, here's a quote, like a terrific quote that we have on the app today. I'm like, here's a moment, like a daily moment, and I can walk you through the app features if you want, but something more like warm to the touch, right? Not that, hey, I want you to like take this action and take it now, and then we both benefit from it. Of course, we're thinking through like how to incentivize it, but incentivize it in a waking up way, as opposed to just monetary, super transactional. You'll never hear from us again.
I see. I mean, the nugget here from what you said was the packaging, the framing of the incent, like, hey, here's a gift, as opposed to here's money or something, right? Or let's exchange, let's both save money. I found this very interesting because just one little wording change can make such a big difference in perception of the user, right? So this is certainly something that we probably tend to forget in advertising in general, let alone the product itself. I guess very often founders and creators of apps or products think a lot about wording in the app itself, but then as soon as marketing comes into play in advertising, it's a little bit forgotten, and we just put anything on the ads just to make people click somehow, right? So this was definitely a very important part in what you said. Do you use a copywriter for such things, or is it happening naturally in an organic way in internal meetings kind of things without specialists? Do you use AI for that? How do you come up with these things?
I would say it's a twofold. Yes, we have a dedicated copywriter. We have, I would say, two copywriters. One that strictly focuses on content and more internal, and the second one is more external and like marketing driven. So right, you would like have those phrases, because at the end of the day, you have to grow and like sell the product, right? So when those two come together, we have the factual information. Let's say the like someone who is very, very familiar with the space and has been a part of just their meditation mindfulness journey for X amount of years, versus, okay, how do we marry the two together so then the folks outside can also like relate. AI comes in handy where there's just framework to be done, right? But less so about the actual like writing copy. And the way that we usually have it is, so we have a couple of features, and you can share almost any content within the app through sharing, right? So going back to referral. So for every event that happens in the app, like we have a 30-day guest pass banner at the bottom of the screen of the home screen. But then also, if you're listening to a moment, or if you're listening to a quote, if you're reading a quote, there is also a sharing feature, and every single one of those events will have a different message associated with it. So we're tying it back to what is said. So like the name of the actual of the actual moment. Maybe now it's good to unpack it a bit. Moments are like 40 seconds to maybe like a 2-minute clips of just taking a moment for yourself. I think, if I were to put it that way, and it's super short, but then it's super to the point of what have you thought of in the last hour? Just like take note, or ground yourself. Where a quote is more of I would think about it more of like as an internal truth of certain things, whether it's Alan Watts or Joko Beck. Those are just some of the teachers that we have in the app, where it's it's to the point. It's usually one sentence, 2 sentences max, and it's really it gets you thinking, I would say. And even a quote can be super strong for you to share with someone. So that's all to say, we have I'd say the content side of things, because we have a lot of content, and sessions can vary from 10 minutes, like the daily meditations that we have, to almost 2-hour, 3-hour talks, where Sam would sit down with someone and actually talk through current events, like current structure, right, and how do people address it. So it's super different. That's why there's a copywriter that's like specifically for content, and what would push out internally emails But then if there's a need to adjust it, to add that bit of virality, right, simplify it a bit, because again, I think one of the challenges is like trying to make sure that people will actually like understand what's being said. I think that's one of the things is like mindfulness can be challenging for some, and obviously there's no issue there, right? Our job as marketers is try to put it in the best suited wording for you to actually go and at least try for yourself. And then I believe like, product will do the talking, like whether it's, UI, UX, whether it's, ultimately it comes down to like actually getting you through the door and let you explore it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Coming back to the original topic of this show today, when marketing gets expensive, I guess you joined the company, marketing didn't exist, you started, you launched the channels, and now you're probably in the growth and scaling phase. Do you see that your CACs are increasing, CPMs are increasing the more you scale in your category, or would you say, hey, it's rather stable? We need to tweak here and there a little bit, but in general, so far we can just put more money into the funnel.
Yeah, it has been increasing. I think we're in a good place compared to where we were, just a couple months ago. So it's all about, to me at least. I think anyone can relate to this, right? You're sort of like a stock market, where if you look at it on a daily basis, right, it's like a heart rate, right? You just go up and down, up and down. But if you take a look back on like what was done in the last 5 to 6 months, right, that like just contribution margin of like paid channels is just steadily going up, 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 up. While on a daily basis, yes, you might see a $5, $10 increases on your CACs, but then ultimately, like over time, right, as you launch new tests, you've kind of paused the creatives that just do not work or do not scale. You see that balance play out where you can actually see a trend, right? So reporting things out on like week to week basis, of course, we do it, and like I look at the data day to day, but that's more of like, all right, is now like the right time to do optimizations? But overall, yes, we have seen cost increase, but that's largely driven by us, I would say. So I think, and I say that because we are doing a lot of testing. I think more than we've ever done. So when it comes to creative channels, right, new tactics, just because we're going back to the team not having like a marketing function, so there's a lot of testing to be done, and I think the team and themselves, like they're just hungry to learn, because up until this point, there were like small tests but never really like materialized, where now we have a steady framework in place of how we approach things, right? Like what are the KPIs for this or that campaign? And because there's clarity on that, we understand that, okay, the cost might increase for this one, but we're learning something else, because then we'll iterate on it and actually like scale it, and then we actually like set it live. So even how we approach the marketing channel, even the channels like Meta, so big, so many people, but I think everybody has a different approach of like how you even test new creatives, or how do you then scale it, right? What sort of learnings you have. Same goes for Google, same goes for Apple Ads, and those are just like right the three main ones that I think top of mind for everybody.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, you can do so much on every channel, like in terms of creative testing or bidding strategies, testing new audiences, these kind of things. When you look at, because we talked about referrals and organic growth, do you see organic growth manageable, or is it something that is just happening or not for some apps? Like, is it something where you actively invest time and maybe resources to get organic growth in the direction you want it, or is it rather a passive function?
It's definitely not a passive function. I think it takes time and effort, and the payoff is not as immediate as it is with paid marketing. So I think it is just when talking about it internally, it's just harder to sell, right? Because it's not immediate, and usually when you folks join, they're expected to have results, the day before yesterday. So I think that's the toughest thing. That's not to say that there's no priority or like prioritization. It just takes longer. So when we see that, okay, when we launch new channels, right, there's going to be a halo effect just because of the world that we live in now, right? There's the more spend that you increase, then the more you increase the spend, then you're getting, more, I guess, brand awareness just in general, right? By the halo effect of things not being tracked. So then you see that there's a slow return even on the paid front, but then if you switch organically where the brand is unknown, so if they were to click on that ad and then try to find out more about you, if if your organic social page is just dead and then you're not posting anything, yes, people will have concerns about it. So it's not the upkeeping of it that's necessary, but it's more of like organic is actually like helping your paid efforts, right? And it's, how would I put it, it's more like an assisted conversion, if you will, right? Where it's people see your ad, yes, you grab their attention. They have two options, right? They either go to the app store right away and they click through and they try to download it for yourself, or they actually have doubts when the first time that you're seeing the app. And if we're talking about, imagine that this is your last day, or like something that's like totally different and they haven't seen before, it'll get them thinking of like, all right, is this like, what is this, right? So they click through, like they do their search, and it does happen organically, because if you are not updating like all the appropriate channels, then they'll think that this is just some kind of scam, right? So it does add to like credibility, absolutely. And I think as new brands scale, it also just invites them to learn more, because what you post in your organic channels can actually contribute, because your paid ads might change, because I think the goal of them is different. But then on the organic side, it's more educational, of like, all right, let's double click on this, let's go deeper into this. Where on the ads, it's more like, hey, click on me, right? I want to make sure that I have your interest. So yeah, there's definitely that balance. And then if one does not supplement the other, there's just a disbalance happening.
Yeah, I get it. When we talk about creatives, like I guess you use statics, screenshots from the app or something like that. You certainly have some motion design, maybe UGC. Do you leverage AIGC? Do you have any other types of creatives that, or source of creatives that you're working with, and that what you think this is very unique to Waking Up?
Yeah, I would say the thing that I found unique to Waking Up is the artist first approach. And I'll explain what I mean. Is we're used to, right, testing out a lot of statics. Statics are probably the first thing to go, easiest to achieve, right? You get the fast learnings. But what we found is at Waking Up, in the first couple of months, yes, we are testing statics, we're testing animation, but what ultimately unlocked it for us, and we are actively replicating new variations of it, is artist forward creatives. And anyone can go to the Meta Ads library to see what they look like, but they're just so different, meaning that we're actually working with artists who take their time and they look through different moments that we have. We go back to moments because it goes back to the content. So we're trying to unpack the content that we have already in the app, so invite them in. But the artist forward approach that we've seen work, this is more of actually adding almost like the Mad Men sort of creative of attention, where a lot of it is UGC now. It's like, hey, you won't believe what happened here, or you see like a 50% off discount, where right now, if you go to the ads library, you see that like for us it's more around motion, and then like typewriter font actually like talking to the moment, so you have this almost like an art feel to it.
Like,
We are
do I need to imagine this like someone who's painting a picture, and this is being filmed, or how do I need to imagine this?
No, this is all animation. So it's visual art, right? It's not like an actual like video footage. But so we take the moment as a basis of it. The moments that we have in the app. So those 40-second clips. Trying to nail down some wisdom, And then what we do is, we reach out to the artists, we commission them to actually have the essentially like the visual part of it, and they listen through the moments that we want done, and then they essentially animate it. Right, like they build a net new asset. It does not take, it doesn't take a short amount of time that AI might do it, but it's more around having this how would I put it? It's sort of like this like intangible feel. It's always like going back to the basics, where the ad that I see now, it's right. They kind of like in two ways. It's either a static of like, hey, redeem it now. There's like 50-40% off, or there's like a person, right, the UGC, talking to the camera saying how they've benefited from XYZ product, and why don't you try it? Where I think for us, it's more of like, again, take a step back. There's something that, like, even if you do not install, there's something for you to learn here, and then there's like a visual appeal to it that sort of captures you. And we've tested this. Yes, we're talking to UGC creators now, but that's more geared towards just a different audience, because what we see internally is that we have, I would say, like three key audiences that we cater to. Obviously, you can like break them down into other segments, but this visual creative, it really has a broad appeal, which should surprise me, because back at Revolut, right, you would have 4 to 5 different categories that you can pick from, and then we either replicate it quickly, so it's like a card in hand, and then everybody is like flashing, or there's some kind of bonus. It's very like benefit driven, where it's like, here it's more like educational and like content first. So it's that was kind of mind-boggling to me, but then we double clicked on that, and then now that's what ultimately like unlocked for us this new growth stage.
Okay. This sounds like you need to invest a lot of time for the production when you use these artist, artist commissioned creatives.
Yes.
How does it play together with testing a lot of creatives? Do you have just a huge pipeline and it's constantly there's something coming? Or do you have another work stream in parallel to satisfy the needs to test on Meta or whatever channel you're using?
We do. It definitely slows things down for us in terms of like, just what we can iterate on, because it's the ad itself revolves around that moment. So we cannot, tweak the copy. We cannot like iterate what's being said, right? But there are the different categories that we usually test on is how do we visualize it for you? So yes, there's like artist works that definitely works, but for us, when we iterate, we always go with just a regular static, and then having sort of like this like voice activated bracket, like when the mic is talking. That would be one approach. Then the second is actually bringing out the moment as just a caption. So a creative copy almost, where we try to hone in on the exact thought that's being said. And third would be more of just I would say a different kind of animation that have seen, I would say, broad appeal in terms of, this is what's trending now, but we've never seen those take off as much as we did the artist forward approach. So what ends up happening is we have to like plan out into the future, knowing that that they need to take their time to make the product worth it, and for it to actually scale. And that means like a lot of planning. So I would say like maybe like a month or two in since I joined, we're already talking, all right, okay, we know that moments work. How long will it take us to essentially take what we have and give artists enough time for them to continue the work, right? We don't want the kind of environment of a sweatshop where it's like just like constantly like this machine. We can work with agencies to actually like provide the iterations, but ultimately like once we hone in on the creative and like the moment that works, we try to commission the work, so then we do it the waking up way.
Okay, interesting. I never heard of this approach with these artists, to be honest, except maybe if I would talk to some art marketplace or something.
Well, that's the thing, and that's why it's a lot of relationship building. I think that the team has done in the years that passed. Even if you go to the app right now, like all the visuals that you see, all the images, all the animations, there's an artist behind it. And I think I'll give props to our like creative director of just like having that relationship with them. And every time that we post on social, we tag the person that has actually like done the work. Right, so we're almost like taking like a different approach from AI. We use it elsewhere, but when it comes to creative, we're super, artists, people first.
Interesting. How do you make sure it's still like on brand? Like, do you give them strict guidelines or full freedom?
It's there are still guidelines, yes. And I think throughout the years, there's just a lot of examples of how and like what we like to see. So it gives us a lot of ammunition to go back to the artist and say, okay, here's some like reference points. Obviously, don't copycat it, but here's like the final output. And then our creative director would work closely with them, and it's really tied to the brand. So the head of brand and the creative director, they work hand in hand, as me, of course, but there's like a mutual understanding of how it looks. There's no strict brand colors or like brand colors that we need, right? It's more around the aesthetic and feel. And what I do, as a marketer, right, I just find the ones that will work, right? I try to like growthify it, right, and kind of be the megaphone almost, right? Because ultimately, like if you go externally, right, you're the megaphone, and then you kind of have to like have the product do the talking for you. And I think waking up with everything that they have, it's it's definitely being a megaphone for a good product.
Interesting. Yeah. How you also have a subscription for students, right, in the app. Do you use that in the communication as well? Like
We
students
have
getting
we have scholarships. So funny enough, if you can of course subscribe to a paid plan, but I think one of the things that we don't necessarily highlight externally, but it's being said in all the other communications, is if you cannot afford waking up, you can request what we call them as scholarships, but ultimately what that is essentially like a free plan. So if you cannot afford it, all you can do is just reach out to our support team, and then you'll have a free account for the rest of the time. So and that goes back to like how Waking Up sees its brand, is everybody should have access to mindfulness. You should at least try. Say it again.
Don't you see abuse on this? Like that people discover that and just
Surprisingly, no. I think that comes down to, you can't necessarily hack mindfulness. Like if you were to abuse it, what would be the purpose of it, right? Like you're right from the beginning. We're not. Yes, we're it's a premium product, right? There's the $149 a year price tag next to it, but I think the benefits that we provide, I think, pay off if you decide to invest in this fully, right? Because if you break it down by year, and then if you meditate daily and then you spend time on it daily, compare $150 a year to the gym membership, right? Where we all know a lot of people sign up in the beginning of the year, but then they end up spending like $600 out of just nowhere, right? Where here it's yes, we have in-app prompts to actually take you back to the app and like use that time wisely to meditate. So if you break that down that way, you're actually not paying a lot. But if you financially, like if you cannot afford it, you also offer it for free. So when I see churn responses on people, maybe I don't know if it should be recorded, but like if I go through the data and actually understand the churn reasons, the biggest churn reason that we have is price related. And I'm sitting there knowing that we actually have a scholarship program, and when people do not reach out to the support team for a free account, we actually we tell them that there's a scholarship program and you can get it for free as kind of a win back strategy almost. and people still unsubscribe saying that they can't afford it. I think that's one of the things that I have to uncover in the next couple of months, where I know for a fact that it's not related to price.
I mean, my instinct would tell me the first stage would be to offer them a discount. Like, hey, like when I'm canceling a subscription on any product nowadays, I'm going through an offboarding funnel, which is already like 20 steps on some products, trying to sell me a discounted.
We have it, but we word it differently. So we have four if you count in free. We have four main categories. It's of course the 149 is the 100%. Then we also ask, all right, is it like 75% of the cost, or 50 or 25, or completely free? Of course, we see a lot of people go to free right away. We don't like push it in like multiple steps of, okay, first, we're going to offer you 75%. And then on the next screen, it's going to be 50%, right? And like so on and so forth. We just give them the options right away because, like I said in the beginning, the team is small, right? And if you are actually benefiting from the content, but you're struggling financially, here's all the options. If you think that you can only afford 50% of the cost, by all means, right? But we don't ask any questions. There is no pop-up appears of like, okay, are you sure you're gonna lose all this stuff? There's no pop-up like that. It's more of like, super simple. Like if you want, if you feel like that you're not benefiting from it, or like if you want another 40-30 days, or just having like a full membership for free, so be it. Right? We don't ask too many questions, and I think it just, again, I'll reiterate, it goes back to the brand values, where we see that mindfulness is not necessarily a hack, but it's sort of like a journey, right? And you pick the path.
Makes sense. Daniel, it was a very interesting talk. Thank you for being so open and sharing all this. There's a few things to uncover. I hope the audience appreciates that with a nice comment and like. Of course, if you guys have questions to Daniel, I guess they can reach you on LinkedIn or something.
Absolutely.
And otherwise, obviously, again, please comment, ask your questions there. It gives us a little bit more reach, hopefully. And thanks for coming, Daniel.
Thank you so much, Andre. Thank you for having me.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
We're here to boost your growth, marketing tips, fun and chat.